In late September 2013, I was hospitalized to a hospital in Northern California for pancreatitis treatment. I lay alone in an empty hospital room, wondering if this is how my narrative ends, alone, among strangers, with no one on the other end of the phone, given that my whole family was back east in Philadelphia, a 3-hour time difference away. I was taken to the hospital for treatment after the doctor's diagnosis and severe warning that I was going to endure more pain than any human being would ordinarily experience in their whole life. What transpired late that September night would forever ruin my reality. I understood deep down that I was dying and that I was being summoned to pay the due that all men must pay. But I wasn't prepared in the least. Hour after hour, I lay there in excruciating pain, the likes of which I had never imagined conceivable. My pancreas was evaporating. I was practically being devoured from the inside out. And just when I thought I couldn't take it any longer, I felt an inside change that made me close my eyes and cringe. It surprised me, and when I opened my eyes, I couldn't see anything. My vision was obscured by a hazy fog, so I proceeded to scrape what felt like solidified wax off my left eye. It was like peeling a layer off an onion. Everything appeared to be clear, but my vision was absolutely blurry, and I began to hear footsteps clambering all about me. Trying to stay cool, I hastily took the coverings off my right eye, the entire while wondering what in the world was going on, but my tummy was overflowing with butterflies, warning me that something was very wrong. I got immobilized with anxiety as my eyesight began to clear and my surroundings came into focus, anticipating the unknown. I found myself on the fringes of a sea of people racing around like wild savages, hurling various weapons at each other. Whatever you want, they got it. Everyone had white eyes all the way down to their pupils. I'll never forget those haunting eyes. Soulless, they possessed every human characteristic, yet something was lacking. I had about a minute when I entered this black dimension to gain my bearings and figure out what was going on. Thought-brewing inquiries quickly came out of my mind. Questions I didn't utter aloud but were being answered regardless, as if they could read my mind. Random people in the throng would yell out responses in the distance. Of course, the first query is, "What is this place? Hell, where do you believe you are?" Came from a man in the distance on a type of balcony. I was in complete astonishment and bewilderment, and I thought to myself, this must be a nightmare. This can't be true. Laughter could be heard from a distance. I couldn't help but wonder what was going on, even if I didn't want to know the answers. Not me was another thought that ran through my mind as the weight of the situation began to weigh on my shoulders. Where do you think they send furious fucking drunks when they die, dumbass? Said a broken down man 10 feet in front of me. His remarks were patronizing, but his demeanor was firm. I was paralyzed, the most intense and unpleasant sort of shock I've ever experienced. Nobody was saying anything orally at the time, but they were speaking to me inside my thoughts. I shook as I attempted to back away from the oncoming turmoil, as if to say, I am not a part of this, but there was nowhere for me to go. A wall of pitch-black darkness surrounded this godless world, deeper and thicker than the midnight sky. As I came closer to the darkness, I felt that my body was being repelled from it, like the same pole of two magnets meeting for the first time. It was unthinkable. I was trapped. You know how you feel when you're caught doing something you know is wrong. Imagine that identical emotion magnified by the knowledge that I was reaping what I had sown for a whole lifetime. Fuck me is an understatement when compared to the raw emotion that was creeping up my spine. I found myself in the harshest of surroundings. Naked, empty, terrified, and vulnerable. There are no words that can express the most terrifying emotion I have ever had in a single thought. It's all over. Even now, it makes me want to vomit. Not only will I never see my loved ones again, but the God I have worshipped my whole life does not want me. My longtime belief that I was unworthy was now confirmed, and just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. The interrogation was over. It was now time for me and my new pals to have some fun. Every piercing white eye turned on me in the flash of an eye, and the rowdy mass began crawling towards me in a terrifying manner. I knew it was coming, but I wasn't prepared for anything. They began the assault with random things. Shoes and shirts, for example. As I begged with them, they whipped me with what felt like a wet towel sting. No, not at all. Please, not me. This is not anything I deserve. Their sly smiles and mocking laughs just added to the fear. They acted as though it were only a game to them. And this was only the beginning. They were just getting started. I was surrounded by as many people as the eye could see and as far as the eye could see. I ducked and dodged my way through the mob, but the more I fled, the worse things became. It was like a video game. As you progressed from the first to the second level, the game became increasingly difficult. And here, wherever here is, things just get worse with each step. Shoes and clothing were transformed into sticks and clubs. The sticks and clubs were transformed into bats and pipes. The intensity of agony clearly rose. But it was nowhere like that of being hit with a bat or a pipe on Earth. I suppose it has to be that way for this awful game to continue. All I could do was grab anything I could find and start punching back. It was unheard of how quickly everyone could move. They sprinted like track stars, boxed like boxers, and wielded weapons like warriors. Things were moving so quickly, and, from what I could see, many of the people seemed to like what they were doing. The brutality was pure entertainment. What could I do except resist and fight back? But there were so many of them, and I was the freshest meat on the market, and the vultures were nibbling away at every scrap of my carcass. It was unrelenting. In the afterlife, birds of a feather definitely flocked together. I know I wouldn't be writing this right now if I hadn't stumbled upon this young child, who must only have been 3 or 4 years old. A calm, little voice caught my attention in the midst of the turmoil, and I was in the thick of it. "Hey," was all she said, and it was enough to put me in my place. When I glanced at her face, I was struck by the fact that she was the only person among millions who had one gorgeous baby blue eye and one pure white eye like the others, as if she could see in both worlds. Behind her was a 12 feet tall man she referred to as the king, who seemed completely unconcerned with me. As I listened to this young girl declare, "I know who you are," the attacks appeared to stop. "What?" I wondered. I pondered. "Your name is J.W.C. How did you find out?" Keeping in mind that all communication was being carried mind to mind, I questioned her. For a little period, her tranquilly provided me some consolation. "You haven't been here that long, you can still go back," she added. An emotion I'd already lost and perhaps forgotten slowly reappeared. Hope. My only query was, how? She stated, "You must experience it. Feel like you're back where you were before you came here." I knew precisely where I had come from since I was still in what appeared to be a silhouette of my hospital gown and was experiencing agony in the area of my pancreas. "Go," she said passionately, as though time was ticking away. Those were her final words to me, and my little respite quickly turned into chaos as the bats and pipes descended on me again. I pushed and shoved and raced as fast as I could, fighting my way through the mob, longing for the darkness in the distance. Nobody or nothing could stop me, no matter how hard they tried. And trust me, they were giving it everything they had. As I moved closer to the boundary, I felt the repelling power of the darkness pushing me back. It became so powerful that I was forced to battle on my knees against an unknown force, pushing and crawling. I'm being dragged back by what felt like 100 hands scrapping and clawing at every inch of my body. I took one more leap into the darkness, feeling full tiredness set in. I closed my eyes and envisioned myself back on the hospital bed with every fiber of my existence. I opened my eyes to find myself in full darkness. It isn't functioning. It isn't functioning. My heart was wounded by laughter and screaming. I fled back a few inches into a force of darkness I'd never felt before and lay on my back, attempting to recreate and will myself back into that hospital bed. I opened eyes for about 10 seconds to check whether I had crossed back over, and to my absolute shock and overwhelming delight, I found myself peering up through the sheet in the hospital. My heart truly felt like it restarted, and I sat up screaming and gasping for oxygen. When the nurses and physicians arrived, I leaped out of bed, tearing my IV out as I collapsed into the medical machinery. I tried to explain what had happened to the physicians, but it was clear that it was falling on deaf ears. Over the next 2 weeks, the nurses enjoyed hearing about my experience and provided me with as much comfort as they could. As I recall being back in that horrible situation, the young girl's voice still lingers in my memory. I sometimes wonder whether I've lived a lifetime of agony only to die and be carried to an aircraft constructed for even more agony. That tiny angel recognized my name. Why, I wonder, is it written already? I suppose that only time will tell. Looking back at those lost souls with their eerie white eyes, all I can feel is despair. I believe they lost not just their humanity, but also their consciousness, their morality. The depth of the reality I encountered was equivalent to the depth of the reality you are experiencing as you read this. Do you believe you're having a dream right now? No, my conviction is identical. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness cannot perceive it.